Start recording. Cool. All right. So this week we're gonna build some regular expressions into our shopping app. So I'll paste the link one more time for anyone who's just joining. Feel free to clone this. If you already have it cloned, you can pull down the master branch. If you don't really want to follow along, if you just want to listen, that's also fine. So we're gonna go into shopping app and so this was my planning. I thought there was going to be a commit message we could check out, but there is not. All right, so master branch, git pull. We should have this week 11, which was last week. Um, and this is the most recent changes we made. Cool. All right, so what do we have? We have right now an application that has a home page, and we can go to /products, and it gives us a table of all the products that a user can buy. We have a cart down at the bottom. We have a cool little toast. We can add stuff to our cart, so on and so forth. And last week, we also added a page to view an individual product. So if I want to learn more about this, these are all beauty products. Maybe this conference chair. Then I can click on the title. It pulls it up in a separate page where /products and then the ID of the product that we're interested in. And we can go back, we can go to the home page, so on and so forth. And I think we also added a 404 page for a page that does not exist. And there we go. Does not exist. All right, so we have our application. At some point, we're going to do some stuff that is going to require the user to log in so we can track who they are and we can associate data with themselves. So maybe once you have picked out your cart of items that are available, we need to actually send the request to our server where we are saying this person wants to buy these things. Go ahead and charge them for it and let me know if it worked. So in that case, I want to make sure that the user is signed up for my application, has given me all the details that I need in order to do that transaction. And then I'm going to perform the transaction and send stuff back. And the user can log in so that they get a API token or some sort of credential that tells the server, I am this person, you can trust me. And the server's like, yes. Cool. So we're not going to do any like really complicated stuff for login and sign up because we don't actually have like an API server that we can call. Um, but what we are going to do is we're going to just create the pages for it. And then we're going to do some validations when the user is trying to sign up that they are actually the right person. And we'll do some stuff like that. So let us jump into our app.jsx where we have this browser router. We have all these different routes the user can go to. And let's create some extra routes in here. So we have a home page. Let's create a route for login. And the element will be some login component, which we have not made yet. And so it should give us a big red error. Let's also create a sign up route. That doesn't exist yet either. So let's go ahead and make it. And create a login component. Export default. And now we can import this automatically, which is great. And I don't think I have a copy button, unfortunately. Oh, no, I do. All right, we're going to rename this. This one will be our sign up. This will be signup.jsx. Well, we now have two components. go to /login, and I can go to /signup, and those both work. All right, this home page, as it currently stands, is not really doing anything for us. It's really just gating our access to the products table. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to say when the user goes to the base route, we're going to instead navigate, which is a component offered by React Router. It's basically the exact same thing as use navigate. But if we have to specify a React component instead, which is to say we have to have a component at this particular route. So this component instead just navigates to some other route. We'll navigate to /login. And so now if I go to the base route, it's just going to automatically navigate me to login. And I can't even go back because it always navigates me immediately. Cool. Let's throw some stuff in here. Our login component, we're going to make a div. We will make an h2, it says login. Make a div with a label. Login with email. And an input is equal to text. And actually, I also want to have a form element in here so that when they hit enter, it will automatically submit this form for them, which should be really nice, I hope. All right, and then, oops, we're gonna make this form include the h2. Great, and so we have a div that's just the label and the input, and make one for password as well. We're not doing anything complicated yet. We just want these to be here. I'll actually put a little space just so we have some room over here. And then let's add a link at the bottom. We're actually going to use the React Router link component, which works like navigate in that it'll just take you somewhere, but it's like an anchor tag that you have to click in order to go there. So we're going to navigate to /signup. And what does this link say? Don't have an account. This is telling me that I need to escape this apostrophe. So don't have an account takes me to /sign. All right, we're honestly just going to leave this one be. I don't think we're going to really do anything with this today. We're more interested in our sign up. So what is the sign up? Well, it's going to have mostly the same properties. We're going to need some extra inputs and stuff though. So our link, we're going to re-import, and this will go to /login. All right, so we don't really need these same fields. We do need an email. We do need a password. We also need someone to confirm password, so they have to type it in twice. What else? Maybe your full name. We'll put that on top of email. And maybe we also ask them to give their age. This one could be input number. All right, so we have all these inputs. At some point, they are going to click a button down at the bottom. And this button is going to say submit. Probably should add a button at the bottom of the login too. And on click, what are we going to do? We're going to submit form. This function doesn't exist yet. Let's go ahead and create it. All right, that's our boilerplate out of the way. We do not have any functionality for submitting this form yet. But in general, once I fill all these things out, oops, we got a event.prevent default. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to put the handler up here. This should look familiar. We've done this before. And this button, instead of having an on click, we're going to say type is equal to submit. And that way, when someone hits enter or when they hit this button, it's actually going to submit this form and call this handler. So now if I hit the button, we should get our console logs to say to do, but it doesn't actually do anything bad. All right, we're gonna live with this for now. It's hideously ugly, but that's okay. Um, so what do we want to do here? We want to, step one, check all our data is valid. Step two, request server to the account. And three, navigate them to the products table if everything looks good. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We can do that last one really easily. We have our use navigate hook. Which we've used in previous weeks. And so at the very end, I'm going to navigate them to /products so they can go to the table. Number one is the big one that we're going to have to do. Number two, we're just going to kind of stub out. Not going to integrate with any servers here. Here is where we call our API. So that leaves us with number one. So can someone give me a suggestion of how we might get access to all of this input data in order to validate it? So when this form is submitted, get the current value of all these different inputs. Any thoughts? Something we've done in previous weeks?
You mind asking the question one more time?
Yeah, go for it.
No, can you repeat the question, your question?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
What is a way that we can get the value of all of these inputs up here in my submit form? Something we've done in a previous week.
Have to deconstruct them, but you can't remember off the top of my head. But like triple dot something.
Yeah. We had a suggestion of use ref, which we might be able to do. I don't actually know how you would make that work. I'm thinking a little bit simpler than a ref. Maybe we could store them in a piece of state as a controlled component. It's a pretty common system for when you have a bunch of different form data. Each piece of form data is a piece of state, and these are all controlled components. So let's do that. Let's create some state here. Name, set name, use state, empty string. All right, got an email, set email, got a password, set password, confirm password, set confirm password, and H. This one we're going to default to be 18. All right. this age is going to be annoying. We're going to get rid of age. We're going to focus on the ones that are more important. All right, cool. So controlled components, we set the value equal to the state variable. And then we have an onChange handler, which gets the event and says set name event.target.value. Whatever the current value that it's changed to, update the piece of state, and then it'll cause our components to re-render and the new value will be set. So we have our name, our email, oops, this should be in our input. All right, cool. We have 4 controlled components. Should be able to type in all of them. Password. We should update the type here. So that it hides it for us. Yeah, cool. And so now, hopefully, that's a little more visible. Sweet. Okay. So we now have access to all of this data. So what kind of validations do we want to run here? I can think of a couple of validations for our name. I'm going to delete this comment since it's no longer super helpful. We're going to sort this by the piece of data that we're trying to validate. So what is a name? It's 2 or more words. Must be alphabetical characters or hyphens, or we'll also allow apostrophes, but nothing else. All right, what is an email? I don't know exactly what the real definition of an email is, so we're just going to create some rules here. So it's something at something dot com dot net, but this is going to end in 3 letters, and these can be as much as we want. Can have multiple periods on either side, but can't end in a period. So Elijah dot at Gmail is not valid. Similarly, Elijah at Gmail dot is not valid. But Elijah at gmail.com, that is valid. We don't care about upper or lower case. Actually, we're gonna leave this out because this might get a little complex, but we'll say everything will be lowercase. So we don't need to worry about this. What characters are allowed? We can have alphabetical, we can have numbers, we can have hyphens. I don't think we're gonna allow any other special characters. Special characters other than exactly 1 @. All right, and then what are our rules for our password? This you could come up with anything here, maybe like 8 or more characters. Must have an uppercase, lowercase, number and special character. Maybe you can restrict what set of special characters are allowed here, just to keep things a little bit contained. All right, we got a bunch of requirements here. These requirements are kind of scary. This one we could do relatively easily by just writing some code. It might be a little bit complicated, but we could write some code that would do this. We could create some functions. We could, read through each character at a time, make sure we find at least one space, which would indicate that we have multiple words. We can check the hyphens and apostrophes or alphabetical characters and make sure if we come across anything else, we fail it. We could write a function to do this one relatively easily. These other ones are going to be a lot more complicated. If you tried to write these out as functions, they would probably be unintelligible. You'd be writing a lot of code that would be very hard to read for an individual, because you're not writing the pattern that we expect an email to take. You're writing a set of rules that we go in a loop or we go recursively, like a function calls itself over and over again in order to try and break down this word and make sure that it's actually valid. And a password, this one we could also do relatively easily, like our name up here, but again, it's not necessarily descriptive of the pattern we're looking for. And we'd be writing a pretty long function that would try to run through the password and figure out what do you not have. So instead, another way that we could approach this that is pretty common is through regular expressions, which you may have heard of as regex. But a regular expression is a pattern that is applied to a string. If the pattern matches the string, it is a success. Otherwise, if the pattern does not match the string, it is a failure. And we can do all kinds of other really complicated stuff. Like we can say, take this string, here's a small pattern that I expect to find in the string, pull out all of those occurrences of this pattern, which might be very generic. It might be a very generic pattern that says like any combination of 3 characters in between 2 hyphens, pull those out. It could be any 3 characters. It could show up multiple times in our string, and we return those values. Or in our case, we're going to use regular expressions to say, does this whole string match this regular expression? And if it does, great. If it doesn't, we got a problem. And in that case, we are not going to allow the user to submit the form, and we're not going to navigate them to /products. All right, so how are we going to do that? Well, I would recommend this website, regexer. This is the one that I typically use when I need to put together a regular expression, which isn't something I do every day at work, but it is pretty helpful to have. And it has a lot of really great stuff for you. It has the ability to save patterns that you've written so you can pull them up really quickly if you go ahead and sign in. It has a cheat sheet, which indicates how do I actually like put together a pattern in order to match with a piece of text. It has a full reference manual for all the cool bells and whistles that you get with regular expressions, which we're going to overwhelmingly ignore. The cheat sheet is going to be our most useful thing here. So a regular expression is in JavaScript specified by an open and closing slash, sort of like a comment, except we're going to put stuff in between the slashes. And you'll notice that it gets special highlighting here. And this pattern is not like a specific piece of text that I'm looking for. It can be. It could just be, I want to find the word text somewhere in this long string. But it could also be something really generic, like I want to find any combination of word characters of length 3. So now it matches several times because we have several locations where there are 3 letters in a row. And we can do all kinds of really cool stuff to describe sort of in terms of a pattern what we want to accomplish. We can use the period, which is a wild card. It matches literally anything. So every single character in this string is a match. We can use a set of braces to indicate I want to match anything inside of here. So this is going to match exactly one character, but it can be A, B, or C. Or it can be any lowercase letter, or it can be any uppercase letter, and stuff like that. And so we're restricting the set that we can match. And there's lots of other cool things. We can negate it, so not any uppercase letter, which is all the lowercase letters and all of our special characters and spaces. We can use these anchors, which say, I want this to occur at the start of the string. So was is a word that appears, but it does not appear at the start of the string, and so it does not match. Similarly, it does not appear at the end of our string down here, English, so it does not match. But if I change this to be English, period, I think this is not going to work because there's a return at the end. Yeah. So now this matches exactly because there's no new line. So there's lots of really cool stuff we can do here. There's more complicated stuff like grouping, which is how you take matches for this pattern out in your code, and then you can like operate on them. Let's say I want to find all instances of a 3-letter word. So this is all 3-letter words with spaces. I could then like use a capturing group to say, okay, return me all of those 3-letter words, and then you can operate them with the rest of your code. And lots of other cool stuff. We could also use these curly braces to say how many you want, or these symbols to say, give me 1 or 2 or 3 in a row, so on and so forth. So this matches any A0 or 1 or 1 or more times, but it doesn't match it 0 times. Stuff like that. We're gonna make some patterns in a second here. I did see a question though, and actually maybe it got deleted. Are there any questions about just generally what a regular expression is and matching regular expressions? Don't worry about the exact syntax yet. We're gonna jump into it a little bit more in 1 second, but I just want to like high level, what is confusing about this? Okay, if there are questions, please speak up. But we're going to go into this test section where we can import a bunch of different strings and then test a regular expression on all of them to make sure that it behaves as expected. So what we're going to say is let's write a pattern to match our name first, because I think this one will be the easiest. So we want 2 or more words, and we want only alphabetical characters or hyphens or apostrophes, and nothing else. So how are we going to do this? We need a set of characters. So what characters are we going to allow? We're going to allow any alphabetical characters, upper or lowercase. We're going to allow a hyphen or an apostrophe. And how many of these do we want? Well, a name could be of any length. So we're going to do 0 or more. So what does this match? Actually, sorry, this should be 1 or more. We don't want to match 0. This is not a valid test. Let's add some more tests. Elijah, that works. Sharice, that works. Who else do we have in the call? Alejandro, that works. what if I tried to put together a name that had a number in it? Joe 3. Oops, that doesn't work. So by default, we are matching any. So if this pattern appears anywhere in our test, then it's no good. So how do we say, I want my entire string to be exactly this pattern? Well, if we go into our cheat sheet, we can go back to this anchors tab where we can say this appears at the start of the string and at the end. If we include both anchors, then that indicates that our regular expression must be the entire string and it's no longer valid. If I did just the beginning, it's still valid, but if I do both, it's not the entire string. Similarly, 3Joe does not work here. And I can't do Joe at E. None of those work. Okay, so that matches one name, one word. But we want to have at least two and possibly more. Some people have more than two names. That's totally fine. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to say we want a name and then a space afterwards. And I need to put this in front of the anchor. So a name and then a space. And then we actually want this again. So if we wanted exactly two, then I would just stick it right back in, Smith. But if I have more spaces or numbers or special characters or something like that, then it no longer works. So how are we going to say do this exactly two or more times? Well, what we can do is we can actually put a space in here to say, no, we can't do that. So we have a space and we have these characters, and we're going to put this in a group and say this group needs to happen at least once, but it can happen more than once. So we're going to use a plus. And then separately, we also want to allow some more characters. So this is all of our letters and then a space, and we can let this happen one or more times. But just this alone is not enough because unless I have a space at the end, it's not going to accept it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy that one more time. We can even put it in another group if it helps with clarity. And now, as long as it doesn't end in a space, we're all good. We can have as many names as we want. Nice. So these don't work. We can't have Joe Schmo with a space at the end. We can't have Joe with a space at the end. We can't have Joe Schmo with a space at the beginning. We're all good. All of these tests align with what I would expect. All right, these all look good to me. I'm going to now copy my regular expression and we're going to stick it into our project. So I'm going to make this a constant. We don't even have to put it in our function because if we put it in our function, it's going to recreate this constant every time our component re-renders, which is wasteful. A regular expression we only need to instantiate once, and then we can use it as much as we want. So we'll call this name regex. And we're going to put it in between these slashes so that it knows that this is the regex we want to use. Is this super easy to read? No. But as long as your regular expression isn't crazy, crazy complicated, generally people who are familiar with regular expressions can sort of parse through it and figure it out. And if they can't, they'll go to a thing like regexer and then go down into this tool section and it explains exactly what's going on. Or we could take this comment out and we'll stick it on top of this regular expression so that a reader of our code will know what rules this is enforcing. All right, so we have our regex here. And let's go ahead and test it. So we need to validate that the full name. So if name dot, um, actually we're gonna use name regex dot test, which is a function that returns a Boolean to indicate whether a pattern exists in a search string. So we're going to test if this matches our name. And if it does not, well, what are we going to do? Let's use our toast a couple weeks back. Toast context. Why isn't this auto importing? That's really weird. We're going to error with the message invalid name. All right, I guess we're going to import this manually. Import from up one level, hooks. Yeah. Where did we put this? Data hooks. Am I going crazy, guys? We're toast context. Toast is in miscellaneous. Toast.js. This is a named import, I think. And let's see how this works. All right, so we have our name. If I type in Elijah Smith and I hit submit, it's going to take us to our table because that is a valid name. But if I leave this empty, invalid name. Oh, but it still navigated us. That's bad. So we need to make sure that we return here so that we jump out of this if it's invalid. So Elijah is not valid. Empty is not valid. Blah, blah, blah is not valid. Elijah Smith is not valid, but Elijah Smith, that's valid. And that takes us to our table. Sweet deal. All right, we got one regex down. We got two more to go. We're gonna do like a very basic email one for lack of time, and then the password we're just gonna copy from Stack Overflow because it's really complicated and I don't really want to write that and try and explain it right now. Questions about this name regex, testing it, so on and so forth. Any questions to this point? All right, let's go make one for our email. So what rules did we have here? We want something at something dot something with 3 letters. And I don't really care what happens in here. So we're gonna just freestyle this and see if we can make it work. One thing that I do recommend is generally good practice is to have your test cases ready to go and know what the expectation is for each test case before you start writing your code because it will help you inform the decisions you're making to make sure that you're handling everything properly. So my email, not my email, since this is going on YouTube. So this email is valid. Elijah dot at gmail.com. This is not valid. And dot Elijah at gmail.com is not valid. Elijah at gmail.me is not valid since it has to end in .com. Elijah.smith@gmail.com. That is valid. All right. This is a pretty good set of test cases for now. So what do we want? We want to match the full expression again. And we're going to have an @ sign in the middle. And what are we going to allow? We said that we're going to have everything be lowercase just to make things simpler. So A through Z and hyphens are allowed. And then we also are going to allow periods, but it cannot be at the start or at the end of a word like this. And so we're going to do sort of similar to the regex that we did for the other one, where we keep the period outside of this range of viable characters. We're going to say one or more viable characters, and then a period. And this we can do as much as we want. So we're going to do 0 or more times because we don't have to have a period in front. And then in a separate group, we're going to again do A through Z or a hyphen. All right. So what is this matching? This matches Elijah at or Elijah dot Smith. This should be our plus sign again to say one or more characters on the other side of this period. So it can't be a dot here, can't be a dot here, but Elijah dot Smith, that's valid. All right, so we got the first half of our thing working. It's getting pretty gross. Bear with me. What are we going to allow here? Well, same thing. We allow hyphens if we want, and one or more of those characters, and then a dot. And we can allow that one or more times. This one will put the dot on the outside since it should be characters and then a dot, but we do have to guarantee there's a dot at the end, so we have that little trailing element. So some amount of characters, one or more, and then a dot, and we can do this one or more times. And then what do we want to end with? We want A through Z, no hyphens, and we want exactly 3 of them. So dot me should not work, which is bad. Oh no. It is working because I inverted it to match none. We're gonna reset these. I think this is confusing to my brain. So match any for all of these, and the ones that are failing are what we would expect. This one fails because it has 2 at the end. This one fails because there's a dot at the front, dot at the end. This one fails because it does not have anything at the end. Elijah.smith@gmail also doesn't, or this shouldn't work, but it does. Oops. Oh, you know what it is? This dot is any character. We need to backslash to make sure that we're treating these as periods, not as any character. So it has to be some number of letters, one or more times, and then a period. And that whole thing can be 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, but it has to end with 3 lowercase letters. So what else do we expect to work? Elijah.smith@gmail.test.com. That is valid. We can have multiple things at the end. All right, this passes all the cases that I expect it to. There might still be some weird stuff in here, but we're gonna copy it out of need for time. Email regex is equal to this very disgusting thing. Again, could you actually look at this and know exactly what it's doing? Maybe, maybe not. Typically, we want to keep our regex a little more simple. But rather than trying to write code to parse out all these instructions, I would always prefer using a regular expression and then just writing some rules to indicate what are we actually allowing here. And we keep these rules up to date as we change those things. Just having some reference for like, what is this regular expression doing, whether it be a link to some outside documentation or the rules that you're writing, super important. So let's add another validation here. And let's check that our email works. So we'll put in a valid name, but I don't have any emails, so it's invalid. Elijah at Gmail. That is not valid. .me is not valid. .com, but with stray periods is not valid. But this is a valid email, and now we can submit, and it'll take us in. So it passed the validation. Cool. Let's copy a password regex because this one's gonna be really disgusting. Stack Overflow password regex. Ooh. Look at this. Look at this. This is gorgeous. Who could read this and not know exactly what this was describing? Wonderful. Truly hideous. But we can at least give them some rules. So what is this password regex? This is 8 or more characters, must have one lower case, one uppercase, one special character, one digit. All right. These are the 5 rules of this regular expression. And if I test this out, I should expect that it works. And while we're here, we're also going to do our confirm password, which we do not need a regular expression for. If password regex, or if password is not equal to firm password, then we're going to error passwords do not match. All right. And I'm just going to type some random stuff on my keyboard for this password. So an empty password does not work. Letters, number, special characters. ABC, 1, 2, 3, bang, bang, bang. All right, passwords do not match, but this is a valid password. You can't see it since we obscured it, but once they do match, ooh. All right, copying and pasting the password does not seem to work, which might be because you can't copy a password when you have your input here, which would be cool. But it generally works now. If my password is too short, then it's not going to like it. But once I make a valid password, then it's all good. All right, we got some regular expressions in here. It's really gross. One thing that we could maybe do to make these a little bit better would be have smaller regular expressions that target a specific feature And then we test the password against all of them. The password in particular, I think, would be candidate for this. Maybe we could have one regular expression each for 8 or more characters. Valid characters contains an uppercase letter somewhere, contains a lower case letter somewhere, contains a number somewhere, contains a special character. And then we could do if password length regex dot test fails, or if password uppercase regex dot test fails, and so on and so forth. And that way we just test all of our different rules, and if all of them are successful, if any of them fail, then we're going to return. But if all of them are successful, then we let them through. And then we can break apart this really disgusting regex, which uses some crazy like look aheads and capture groups to say like this can happen anywhere in the string, and this one can happen anywhere in the string, and this one can happen anywhere in the string, and this one can happen anywhere in the string. And then the string has to be made of these characters 8 or more times. Like this is essentially doing the same thing. It's just combining a bunch of rules in a way that's sort of hard to understand. So maybe we break these up. I'll leave that up to you. Regular expressions can definitely be useful. I wouldn't say that you're going to use them all the time, but it is a very handy toolkit item to have in the future. All right, it's 7:59. I'll stick around for questions as usual. If not, make sure you fill out the sign-in form. Remember that next week is the last week. So I will be here next Thursday, and then do not come the week after, please. No one will be here. But I'll stick around for questions if there are any. Otherwise, have a good night, have a good weekend, and I'll catch you guys in a future week.